today we're talking about what to do when a narcissist talks to you, because I know they are baiting you, they're triggering you, they're trying to get you in the mud, down in there with them. We want you to stay calm. We want you to stay composed. We want you to be like Zen. Who here wants to stay Zen? Who here wants to be like, what narcissist? There's no narcissist around here. It's like a minefield dealing with these people. We want you to be confident, cool, in control. So let's get into it. So staying calm and composed. You don't want to be baited. How do you do that? They thrive on these emotional reactions because it gives them that power, it gives them that control. As soon as you show a reaction, they're getting that hit of supply. It's like you just gave them that hit, that drug that they're looking for. It's like their drug. And by staying calm, by staying cool, you're depriving them of this. So let's say you're at a family gathering and the narcissist starts making passive aggressive little comments about your achievements. Oh, that's so great that you got that job promotion. I mean, given your background and everything, I mean, congratulations for being able to achieve that, considering what you were able to do. It's like they give you a compliment, but then they kind of take away the compliment. You know what I mean? Instead of being defensive or angry, just take a deep breath and maintain eye contact and respond with a neutral statement like, oh, well, I'm really proud of myself. Yeah. Thank you. And it just shows like you're nonplussed and you are in control. You just pretend like you are just only taking it as a compliment. The next thing is to set clear boundaries. Setting clear boundaries is crucial when dealing with a narcissist. They often test limits to see how much they can get away with. How do you do that? By setting clear boundaries, enforcing boundaries. You protect your time, your energy, your self-respect. So, for example, the narcissist constantly interrupts your personal time with unnecessary calls or messages. What you want to do is you want to establish a boundary by saying, I'm available to discuss work matters during office hours. Please respect my personal time outside of these particular hours. Here are the hours. And if they continue to contact you, calmly but firmly reinforce the boundary. As I mentioned, I'm not available outside of these particular hours. I'm happy to discuss this with you tomorrow. So example number 2 might be in a social setting. If the narcissist frequently makes derogatory comments about your friends or about your interests, just state, I don't appreciate negative comments about my friends. You can be respectful, but we're not going to be having these conversations. Thank you very much. That would be how you set boundaries. The next one is the gray rock method. So you know what a gray rock is? Like you're just like a gray rock where you're just like, really, really super boring over here. I just look like a gray rock. That's what a gray rock method is. You don't want to give them supply. So anytime you are heightened, you're in it, you're in the thick of it, you're giving them that hit, that drug, that food, that lifeblood, that oxygen. So you want to, as little as possible, so uninteresting, unresponsive as possible, because they want that drama, trauma, and chaos, that excitement. They're addicted to that. So you want to be boring to reduce their interest in you. So if the narcissist starts bragging about their latest accomplishment in an attempt to provoke envy, to get you to be jealous or to get them to admire you, just respond with a simple, uninteresting, and just don't ask follow-up questions, don't show any interest, don't get excited. Or if they try to provoke you by bringing up a controversial topic, instead of like engaging give non-committal responses like, oh, interesting. Oh, I see. You want to just get them to move on. That's the gray rock method. And if you guys have ever done this before, I want you to put that in the comments. I've done this. If you want phrases for disarming narcissists, go to disarmthenarc.com for phrases for disarming narcissists, disarmthenarc.com. The next thing is redirecting the conversation. So this is just like a full-on pivot. I'm not going to engage right here, but we're going to just redirect the conversation to pivot it to something else. It helps to steer these interactions away from something that's contentious, away from something that's, to be manipulative, hopefully get them into something that's maybe neutral or more uplifting, something that's maybe productive. Oh, maybe they're criticizing you. They're criticizing your choices. You can redirect the conversation by saying something like, oh, I understand that you have your opinions on this topic, but let's talk about this project I'm working on right now. Or what are your thoughts on this? Get them to talk about their thoughts or opinions on something. It's always great to ask their opinion on something because they love to tell you what they're thinking on something or their opinion on something, right? It minimizes personal attacks instead. Or, you can redirect them into something else if they want to gossip, if they want to talk negatively about something or someone and you don't want to engage in that. You can get them to ask, what do you think about, I don't know, the latest sports thing or whatever it is that they're interested in, and just talk about something else. Minimize the conversation about whatever it is that they're talking about that you don't want to talk about, and get them to be redirected into talking about something else that's maybe positive, maybe professional, if it's a professional environment. I always say focus on facts, not negativity or people or things that aren't productive. The next thing is using assertive communication. And I don't mean aggressive, not aggressive. Not you did this or you did that, because that's never going to help you, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist. Whenever you put them on the defensive, you're totally going to have a narcissist who's going to push back against you. Expressing your needs in a way that's respectful without being aggressive. You don't want to be passive. You want to stand up for yourself. They will respect you if you are respectful and not demanding, but you have to be assertive in a respectful way. So if they try to take credit for your work, you can say, I contributed significantly to this project, and I would appreciate being recognized for my efforts. You want to make sure that you're acknowledged. You want to make sure that you're respected. They may push back, but you do want to stand up for yourself, and you can say it in a way that's respectful. You make sure you always remain calm. Make sure that you keep your voice low, your tone low. The higher your tone goes, they will match your tone, and they will accuse you of yelling and all of that. So make sure you keep your tone low. And if they try to make you feel guilty for not meeting unreasonable demands, respond assertively. I understand that you're disappointed, but I have other commitments that I need to prioritize. Let's find a solution that works for both of us. This balances their power and their need for control, but also it makes them feel seen. It makes them feel heard. It allows for a feeling of cooperation. Always, always, always avoid arguing. I always say never jade. I always wear jade because I'm half Chinese, but never justify, argue, defend, or explain. Because you never want to get into a conflict with a narcissist, and you're never going to get a narcissist to go, you know what, you're right. I totally see your side now. They're not going to do that. Okay, you want to de-escalate situations. Very, very important, by the way, to seek support. You need to seek support. You need to have an army around you when you're dealing with a narcissist. So make sure that you join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. It's a very nice, beautiful community of people who are there to support you. That's what they're there for. You want emotional relief. You want people who are guiding you. Get therapy if you need it. Get the support and help of friends, family, people around you who can help you as well. Talk to a friend who can help you, who's going to be a good source of guidance, though. Somebody who can make you feel less isolated. And that's why I started my high conflict negotiation certification program, because I have a whole suite of coaches who can help you at breakingfreepowercoaching.com. You can check those out as well. Support groups will help tremendously. And if you're interested in getting certified, that is a great way to help others as well. And this is really, really, really one of the most important things that you can do when you are dealing with a narcissist, either in your personal life, in your business life, or when you are negotiating with a narcissist. Is such a really, really great tool that you will have in your toolbox. And I actually say that you can use this either as, in a way, sort of a weapon or as a shield, because when you're dealing with a narcissist, you definitely need both. And you can use this right away and in any time when you're communicating with a narcissist. It means, in a way, is like you literally become like a boulder. In a way, it's more like a boulder than a rock, but you can kind of think of it as gray rock. So you become devoid of emotion. You become immovable. Just think of yourself as kind of a gray rock. What does a gray rock do? What does a gray boulder do? It just sits there. It doesn't get triggered. It doesn't move. It just literally sits there. I mean, I remember doing this when I was dealing with a couple of narcissists in my life, and I didn't know the term gray rock at the time. I just kind of instinctively knew to do this. It's kind of like I knew, don't give them the satisfaction. You know that they're trying to get under your skin. You know that they want to get some kind of rise out of you. You just don't give it to them, because what happens is they get narcissistic supply out of that. They love to see you go crazy. They love to see you get triggered. You just have to do whatever you can not to allow yourself to show that. And that's why you really need to have those boundaries. That's why you really need to keep your interactions as brief as possible, because you know that you're going to get triggered, especially if you've had a longer term relationship with them. They know how to push your buttons. They just know exactly what to do to push those buttons. So you just try to be steadfast. You try to be indifferent. So here are some good examples. They text you. They text you something where they want some big dramatic response out of you. Just write back K, just like the one letter, just the letter K, or KK. Something like that, you know, like my teenage daughter will respond like that sometimes. I mean, she's not trying to be like gray rock to me. She'll just do that to be cute sometimes, but you can just do that. Or you can just say, okay, if that's what you want or whatever. I mean, you know, just make it clear, like, I'm not affected by you. I am so not affected by you. I mean, I remember one time there was somebody in my family who was like really trying to get, you know, some emotional response going on. You know, you just like put it back on them like, oh, geez, you know, I'm sure traveling is really stressful or something like that. Like you just like put it on them. Like, I'm sure you're really stressed out right now. You know, you don't even like take it personally at all. Like, I'm sure you're really stressed out right now. I'm sure you must be going through a really tough time. You don't even make it seem like whatever they're saying about you has anything to do with you at all. Because a lot of times, not only do they get narcissistic supply from it, they're also trying to get you to do something that they can then use against you for custody, use against you in court to make it look like you're crazy, something like that. So, you know, don't give that to them, because then they'll be able to show the judge or the mediator, see, I told you that person is unbalanced or bipolar or whatever it is that they're trying to say about you, right? So you got to be really, really careful about that, because there it is in black and white. You just give them that one time, or worse, they use it against you for a potential restraining order. I've seen that happen before. I mean, just that one time that you throw that one thing, or you slam that door, or you yell, and now the cops are showing up at your house and you're suddenly getting arrested for domestic violence. And there it is. You don't want to have that happen. You got to stay in control of your emotions. You got to be that gray rock, right? And especially because, if they show up at your kid's soccer game with that new form of supply or whatever, and they want you to say something so bad, you just say, oh, hello, to their new person. How are you? So nice to meet you. You just smile. Don't say a word. Don't say a word. Nothing other than that, because that is what they want. They want so much to get under your skin, so much. Think about Ted Lasso, right? I don't know if you guys watch that show, but I actually have a video, by the way, on the narcissistic characters in Ted Lasso, which you could definitely check out if you'd like. But there's actually a scene in that show where Rebecca's ex-husband comes in and he wants to just tell her about how he has gotten his new girlfriend pregnant. And you could tell that she's bothered by the fact that he did that. And he says, oh, I guess I had to, find the right person or something like that. And, it just so gets under her skin. She just doesn't want to let on. Just don't let on. That's the right thing to do, because that is exactly what they want. Don't give them the satisfaction. Don't let them see you sweat. So I want you to put that in the comments right now. Don't let them see you sweat, because that's what they want. Go scream in the shower, go cry in the shower, scream in your pillow, do whatever you need to do, but you are a gray rock in front of their face. That's what you have to do. I mean, you just, in front of their face, you just smile. Even when they're gaslighting you and they're saying things, like, we had that conversation and this is how it went. I want you to smile and say, oh, you just obviously aren't remembering correctly. Oh, you just must not remember, or we remember it differently. Just say it like that. We just remember it differently. And, we can agree to disagree. And that's it. And you can just smile and walk away. The rest of what you want to say can just be silent. Just fill in the blanks silently in your head. And you don't have to say it out loud. Karma never forgets. She's got a very long memory, and karma always comes back around, because what goes around comes around. My dad used to say, be careful what you throw up in the air, because it will come back down on your head. And it definitely does. You can just say, like, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's fine, just because we disagree, you don't have to be disagreeable. That's totally fine too. And you can fake it. I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator. You don't have to be anything other than whole and complete. And you are planted firmly in your power. You know who you are. And this is you knowing who you are, right? And yeah, it can be exhausting. It can be draining. And that's why you keep those interactions as brief as possible. I mean, you really don't want to spend a whole lot of time around this person, because they do want to drain you. They do want to trigger you. They're constantly needling you. They're constantly trying to get some kind of reaction out of you, because that's what feeds them. That's their food. That's their lifeblood. That's their oxygen. If they don't get that, then they're going to try to, slither on down the road to get it from somebody else. It's their way. It's how they're built. And you're not going to change that. You're never going to change that. I recently had a conversation with Marissa Peer, who's one of the most renowned therapists in the world. She won't even counsel narcissists. She won't even take them in her practice. You know why? Because she knows she can't change them. Think about that. She knows that there's nothing she can do for them. She'll help the people who've been traumatized by them because she knows that she can help them. She knows that she can do something for them, but she can't help the narcissist. You know why? Because they have no self-awareness. They can't be helped. They can't be saved. So if the therapist who does hypnotherapy, who literally trains thousands of therapists all over the world, cannot help them, you cannot help them. You can't do it. You literally do not have the tools to do it. So what can you do when you're around them? You can just go gray rock. You use that as your shield. You use that as your weapon. You say, okay, if that's what you want to think, sure, I agree with you, great, whatever. You just give them nothing because you know why? They get bored. They get bored with a gray rock eventually. They're not interested in the gray rock. They don't care about the gray rock anymore. They move on from the gray rock because they want supply. They're not getting it from something that's not giving them any kind of feedback. You know, my husband and I used to have somebody in our family who was, you know, like trying to get a rise out of somebody. And then as soon as the person would finally be upset, like angry, like on the verge of tears, this person would be like, oh, now we're having a conversation. All right, now we're getting going. This is good. What? Yeah, but that's to that person, that's what that meant, because that person was finally getting fed. You don't want to be food for a narcissist. That's no fun. So just, you know, become a gray rock, protect yourself, use that as your shield. You don't go to war without weapons. You don't get ahead in battle without weapons. You don't go to war without a shield to protect yourself, right? And when you're in battle with a narcissist, you need weapons. When you're dealing with a narcissist, it's either black or white. That's how they see things. You're either for them or you're against them. When you're in that discard phase, you are definitely against them because you become public enemy number one. So when it becomes time to say goodbye, they want to make sure that you go down before they go down. They want the whole world to see that you were wrong. This is when you see the birth of the smear campaign, right? So you got to have protection, and your protection will be that gray rock. Just become a gray rock. So no more supply, no supply for you, because you are no longer giving yourself to someone who doesn't deserve it.
Fed up with narcissists walking all over you? Sick of everyone believing their lies while you're paying through the nose in attorney's fees? What if you could hold all the cards for a change? Hey, I'm Rebecca Zung. I'm a top 1% trial attorney, a USA Today bestselling author, and I've spent my entire career helping people slay narcissists in negotiations, most recently through my proven slay method. What if your suffering could become your superpower? Imagine turning all that pain into power, not just for you, but for others too. This is your chance to take back control. You can finally win. Become a high conflict negotiation certified coach. Help others while transforming your own life and do good for the world. This is your chance. Go to RebeccaZung.com/apply and I'll show you how to turn the tables for good starting today.
Okay, so I cannot wait to dive into this. I'm watching this series. It's a 6-part series. It's predicted to sweep the Golden Globes. It's up for every single major award, including Hugh Grant, Nicole Kidman, the entire series, David E. Kelly, the whole shebang. And It was so fascinating to me as an attorney who helps people negotiate with narcissists. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many facets of this that really could be helpful for people. So I wanted to break it down for you. So the first thing is that, here's a guy who somehow suffered some sort of trauma when he was a kid. And by the way, spoiler alert, I should say that spoiler alert, don't watch this unless you've already watched the series. And if you haven't watched the series, go watch it and then come back and watch this analysis. Okay. So, all right, going back to it. So he had something happen to him in his childhood, which ends up coming out later on. And I'll tell you about that in a second. But here's a guy who was extremely charming, very handsome. I mean, it's Hugh Grant, for God's sake. It's the rom-com guy, right? And he plays this doctor who takes care of kids with cancer. He is married to Nicole Kidman. They have a son who's, I think, around 12, something like that. And he seems to have pretty much the perfect life. There he goes. He goes to a fundraiser, and there's this woman there that his wife, Nicole Kidman, had just recently met. She's another mother at the school and doesn't let on that he knows her. And, he gets a call in the middle of the fundraiser and says, I have to go. I have to go to the office or back to the hospital. I have an emergency. So Nicole Kidman ends up going home, goes to bed. He gets home much later. He's very upset, tells her that he had lost a kid with cancer, she'd passed away. And then the next morning he leaves for what she thinks is a medical conference. And then her life starts to become unraveled. And she finds out that he wasn't at the medical conference. He left his phone at home. Meanwhile, this woman that they saw at the fundraiser is also found dead. And all these things start coming out, like that he had been fired from the hospital like 3 months before, that he had been having an affair with this woman who just passed away. And then he ends up, coming back into her life, and a couple of days later, and tells her, I didn't do it. There's no way I could have murdered somebody. Me. I know it looks bad. I was having an affair with her, but I didn't do it. I didn't kill her. And this guy is so charming that he gets everybody in his world to believe that he didn't do it, because he has relied on his charm for so long. So there's so many facets of what happens here when a narcissist starts to become undone because the fence is being built around them. And this is what I tell you guys all the time. So building strategy, creating that leverage, so important, because that's what makes them start to make mistakes. This is when you start to see the narcissist come unglued. So what happens is, and spoiler alert one more time, so you can't say I didn't warn you. So the guy ends up murdering that woman that night of the fundraiser because she is threatening to expose him. She's saying, I think that we should tell people. I want your son can be a great big brother to my son. Everybody in the world's going to know. He couldn't handle the fact that all the people that he respected, including his wife, including his son, it was very critical to him that he maintained that their sense of adulation about him. He was not able to take that. And that's when he started to become undone. And that's when he started to make mistakes, huge mistake, by murdering this woman. Then he starts making another whole series of mistakes. He tries to go back to the well of the things that he knows how to do. And this is what I want you guys to understand. So you see him hoovering. He goes back to the wife. Oh, come on, honey. We love each other. We can get through this. Back to the husband, the son. We can be a family. We can do this together. He tries holding the wife's hand. He tries hugging her. He even thinks that he can charm the husband of the woman that he murdered. He goes to his house. The son is there. He says hello to them. He's trying to charm them into believing that he did not do it. Yes, he did bad things, but he is not a killer. And so, and by the way, he can show emotion when he needs to, which is something that a lot of covert narcissists are really able to do. And especially the really smart narcissists, they know how to turn on the empathy, they know how to turn on the charm, they know how to make themselves look like they're good people. But they're also prone to this magical thinking, this distorted thinking that they can get everybody to just be charmed by them, that they can get people to forget about what it is that they did. They want people to move on or project what it is that they did onto somebody else. He's trying to blame the husband, he's trying to blame anybody else that he can. So that's what happens when they start to become undone. They start to make mistakes. They start to go and rely on the things that worked for them, the love bombing, the gaslighting. I mean, even the gaslighting of the wife, despite exactly what you see, how it looks to everybody that he's the one that did the murder, he's telling everybody, I didn't do it. I couldn't have done it. And that's exactly how narcissists operate. They try to take things that are very obvious and just say what you see with your own eyes, what you hear with your own ears ain't happening. That's not the truth. So and there's some speculation about narcissists around whether or not they just, despite intellectually knowing what the truth is, they just have to live in this distorted way of thinking, this magical way of thinking. And that really came out at the end of this movie when he's talking to the son, or the end of the series, the last episode, where he says to the son, the person that did that wasn't me. That's not the dad, and it's almost like that's how he can justify it all to himself, because it's not the person that he wants himself to be. It's not the dad. The last part of his undoing is where they find out that the son had found the murder weapon at their beach house where he had been hiding out, and the son actually runs it through the dishwasher twice to protect him and holds on to it to protect the father, because he knew the father had done it. Can you imagine this 12-year-old son? So when that happens, in order to try to protect himself one more time, he goes and he says to Nicole Kidman, the mother, do you think that the son could have done it? And it was in that moment that Nicole Kidman was like, uh, okay, clearly he did it. I can't believe that he would actually try to pin this on our 12-year-old son. Oh my gosh. But she's very shrewd. She doesn't let on. So this is where I talk about ethically manipulating the manipulator. This is exactly the kind of thing that you guys can do too. And so what she does is she shrewdly says, "Oh, put me on the stand. I'll talk about what a great guy he is." So in the meantime, she has her best friend, who also happens to know the prosecutor, let the prosecutor know that when this guy was a teenager, he was supposed to be watching, he was like 14, he was supposed to be watching his 4-year-old sister. He was doing something in the kitchen. She ends up going outside, gets hit by a car, and dies. Apparently, the mother told Nicole Kidman, I never saw him have any moment of grief. I never saw him have any moment of, uh, empathy or care about that situation. He didn't even seem traumatized. She actually said she thought he was a sociopath. And apparently, Nicole Kidman, who was playing a therapist in this movie, had also told this friend that she was pretty sure that Hugh Grant had narcissistic personality disorder. So she gets on the stand. She says, "Oh, yeah, he's a great dad, great husband, wonderful. He could never do any of these things." But she knew that the prosecutor was going to cross examine her and ask her, Well, but didn't his mother, his own mother, say these things? And didn't you yourself diagnose him as this? And so she was able to ethically manipulate the situation so that she wasn't the one who was actually saying these things, but she got the prosecutor to force it out of her. So obviously that ended up to be his final undoing. So, what I want you to know when you are negotiating with a narcissist is you've got to create that leverage. And if you want to know more about that, check out my video on creating leverage when dealing with narcissists. And you also need to not fall prey to their well of tricks, their to-do list of tricks that they go back to, the gaslighting, the manipulating, the hoovering, the love bombing, all those things that they're trying to do because they know that they are being cornered. And I also want you to know that as they start to become unglued, they start to make mistakes. If you want to know more about the collapse of a narcissist, I have a video on that as well. But that's what happens to them. They start to make mistakes, and you'll be right there to catch it and then use that as leverage against them. You don't have to get upset. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to, you don't even have to give up. You can keep going. But remember, when you're negotiating with a narcissist, it is a long game. You can't expect instant results, but you can sit back and watch them uh, basically build their own noose. And they can do that. And that's when you'll be there to make sure that you use that as leverage so that you can end up with a fair result and come out hopefully somewhat unscathed from this situation.
So I'm going to give you 6 things to avoid here. And then at the end, I'm going to give you the number 1 thing to avoid. Okay. So 6 things to avoid. And then I'm going to give you the number 1 thing to absolutely avoid, the mother load of things to avoid, the hairiest thing to avoid of all. All right. Because let me tell you, when you are dealing with narcissists, toxic people, there actually are a number of things to avoid. All right. So I'm going to help you out here for sure. There's just so many times that it's like you're dealing with a landmine when it comes to narcissists. All right. And I know because I've dealt with them in my personal life as well. And that's why I'm on this mission. I'm on this crusade. I've been recognized as one of the top attorneys in the United States. I've written a couple of best-selling books, but I'm here giving you free advice every single day because I want you to have the information in your hands. So if you want that too, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. And by the way, if you're looking for ways to disarm that narcissist, free phrases, free responses, how to respond, you don't know how to put it into emails, you don't know how to put it into text messages, you don't know what to say, I've got those responses for you. Just go to disarmthenarc.com, disarmthenarc.com. I've got those free phrases for you, disarmthenarc.com. All right, so number 1, don't try to change their mind. Don't try to change their mind. All right, because you're never going to do that. Once they get it in their mind that they are going to do something, then that's it. You might be able to change their mind in other ways, but if you head on try to change it, they're going to dig their heels in and be super, super stubborn. To change a narcissist's mind, you've got to kind of plant seeds and sort of let them kind of come to their own conclusions and let them sort of think that it was their idea. You can't head on let them think that you're changing their mind, because if you do, they'll never, ever change it. So number 1, that's one thing. And I'm working my way up to the mother load thing to avoid when talking to a narcissist or a negative person. All right. The second thing to avoid is don't ever try to get them to acknowledge anything you ever did for them. or, your accomplishments or anything like that, because they're never going to do that. They will never acknowledge that. And by the way, if you are negotiating with a narcissist, don't think that early on you are generous and say, you know what? I'm going to give them this thing. I'm going to throw in this thing that I know that they want, or I know is something that I'm entitled to, but I'm going to give it to them because then they'll see how generous I am. And then everything's going to get resolved earlier because they're going to see how nice I am, how generous I am. They don't. They either, number one, think that they're entitled to it. So they're like, no, you're not being generous. That was mine to begin with, or I was entitled to that to begin with. Or number two, they just take it. They basically just throw it to the side and just go, yeah, and your point is what? I want more. They don't ever go, yeah, you did this thing, or yeah, that's great what you did for that. They just don't. They don't acknowledge you. They don't see what you've done for them. It doesn't become kind of like, this chip that you did early on, this great sort of generosity accomplishment that you got early on. It doesn't happen like that, unfortunately. So don't think that you're going to do that early on and get some kind of goodwill for it. Okay. So that's the second thing. The third thing that you want to avoid when you are talking to a narcissist or a super negative person is thinking that you're going to get closure. A lot of people just want that closure. They want that bow that tied up. Hey, we had a great thing. Let's wish each other well. Let's know that it was all good. And, going forward, let's be on good terms and all those things. That's what I thought when I was wrapping things up with a person in my life that I had a business relationship with. I thought that I could do that and leave it all on good terms and have some kind of closure with it, talk it through. It doesn't work that way with narcissists. They're not capable of it. No matter what you do, even if they wanted to end the relationship, they still end up taking it personally, that you were okay with it, that you're walking away from it. Even if you didn't want to walk away from it, they still end up looking at you as an enemy, no matter what. If you're not for them, then you're against them. You're not going to get that closure. You're still going to end up being public enemy number one. It's not going to feel fair. It's still going to be awful. You're not going to get that. So don't think that. Avoid talking to them about that. Avoid thinking that you're going to get that nice little neat bow at the end of that. Just avoid that conversation. Avoid trying to have that closure conversation, because you're not going to get the thing that you think that you're going to. And in fact, you're going to end up hurting yourself more than anything, because whatever you say or do will end up being used against you no matter what, because they will end up saying and twisting things that you do. Okay, so which leads me to the next thing, which is don't argue with them, because when you argue with them, then you will end up getting into that quicksand with them. And, that's exactly what they want you to do when you argue with them. Now you're getting into the thick of it. And, I remember, some of the narcissists that I've known, they'd be like, yeah, now we're getting into it. Now we're having a conversation. They actually enjoy that. They get off on it. They get a high on it. And you are out of your realm, because especially if you are, an empath, and you think that you are going to get to a resolution, you think that you are covering ground, you think that you are getting to an end point. You are not. They are trying to just keep you spinning your wheels. They're just, yanking your chain, spinning your yarn, and it ends up costing you money, costing you time, costing you energy, your mental health, your soul, the whole thing. You are just arguing with them and they're just getting narcissistic supply out of the deal. You're going nowhere. So that is just one of those things that you really need to avoid. And by the way, I've gone through 4 things so far. I still haven't gotten to the number 1 thing that you need to avoid, by the way. Okay. These are just other things that you need to avoid. There's still not even the number 1 thing that you need to avoid. Have you figured out what the number 1 thing is yet? Haven't even gotten to it yet. These are all just other things that you need to avoid. All right. The next thing that you need to avoid, which is still not the number 1 thing, but is a 5th thing that you need to avoid, is definitely avoid defending yourself. Do not defend yourself. Do not go, I didn't do that. That's not me. Are you kidding me? You think that I did that? What are you saying? I'm not a horrible person with money. I don't steal. I'm not a child molester. I don't do. What are you saying? How can you accuse me of that? Those are the kinds of things that narcissists want you to say. I don't beat children. I don't do, I'm not a horrible mother or a deadbeat dad. Those are the kinds of things that narcissists want you to say. They want you to get into it with them, right? They want you to say those things because that is where they get you down into it again, right? Arguing with it. They pull you into that quicksand. They pull you into that mud, right? They start going down into it. Oh, you bought a dog that was a designer poodle or a designer this or that. And you're like, what? I got the dog at the pound and I can prove it. And then there you are defending yourself. Don't go down the path. Don't do it. When you defend yourself, you're agreeing that there is an issue. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is say, I deny what you're saying. No, there's no merit to what you are saying. There's so much more merit in short things. Never explain, justify, or overshare. Just the facts. Stay strong. And I want you to put that in the comments right now. Stay strong. Stay strong. You can do it. And by the way, still haven't gotten to number 1. Still haven't gotten to number 1, which is what I'm going to do right now. Are you ready for number 1? The number 1 thing to avoid when talking to a narcissist or a negative person, the number 1 thing, which I've kind of alluded to here so far, but I haven't actually come out and said it yet. The number 1 thing to avoid when talking to a narcissist is do not take their bait. Do not take their bait because they're going to give you a lot of it. They're going to pull it out and they're going to reel you in like that. Like you are some kind of fish on their hook. And then there you are coming in like that. And like they hooked you like a fish. Okay. And dealing with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Like everything you say or do is going to end up being used against you, right? And you don't want to have to deal with that. And this is whether you're dealing with it in a case, a court case, or any kind of situation. It can be any kind of a negotiation or anything. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real. Therapy can feel like a really big investment, but your mental health is just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost $100 to $250 per session, but with BetterHelp, you can save up to 50% per session on average. You pay a flat weekly fee, which means more peace of mind for less. Therapy should feel accessible, not like a luxury. BetterHelp gives you that, all from the comfort from your home. And with over 30,000 therapists to choose from and 5 million people served globally, this is the world's largest online therapy platform, and you can switch therapists at any time. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/negotiate today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/negotiate. All right, so today we are tackling, what do narcissists hear? It's really interesting, especially when you're going to negotiate and you're dealing with them, or you're communicating with them. What's going on there? Let's get started. So one of them is, let's just say you want to engage in an activity with them, something that's completely innocuous, something that you might think is going to be fun. Let's say you're in a couple relationship, you just read a really great book, you want to plan a future together, and it's like a self-help book or a couples planning book, and you're saying, hey, I just read this really great book and let's plan our future together. Let's sit down and do this. I want to do this. So how about we do this together? All of a sudden you get a massive explosion on you, and they hear that you are making them wrong. They hear that you are saying that you're trying to fix them, that there's something wrong with them in some way. All of a sudden, they're going to start to say, I need to check out this author. I don't even know who this person is. You're trying to manipulate me. Why are you bringing this up now? You can do this if you want to. And you're just trying to spring this on me. You're suddenly attacking me. All of a sudden, it becomes this explosion of fireworks, because what they hear is you're making them wrong. You're saying there's something wrong with them, and you're trying to manipulate them in some way. And you're over there thinking, I thought we were going to do something fun. I thought it was going to be something for both of us. But what they hear is that you are criticizing them in some way. Another one is that you are super excited. You know, you were recognized by something, or you achieved something really, really cool. So you're really, really excited about that, and you want to share that you are recognized or you achieved something. And so you share that with this narcissistic person. Hey, I just got recognized. What they hear is you are saying that you're better, that you are competing with them, that you are putting them down, and you're minimizing that person, that you are maybe marginalizing them in some way, that you might leave them in their dust at some point, that you're getting too big for them or whatever. So it'd be like, oh, that's great for you. Whatever, I'm so happy for you. Good for you. Good for you. Have you seen this so far? Give me a yes in the comments if you guys have seen any of this so far. The next one is, if you say to them, when you did this, it hurt me. I need you to, acknowledge that it hurt me in some way. Anytime you want them to acknowledge your needs or acknowledge something that they did or take responsibility in some way, what they hear is that you are making them small. You're trying to make them wrong. And they cannot take that. Their ego is so fragile already. They're barely clinging on there with the little shreds of self-value that they've got going on there. So they cannot take that. So what they will do is they will attack, they will defend, and they will push that back on you. Why are you bringing that up now? I did say that. I never said that. I always do that. It's a constant gaslighting, and you certainly don't feel acknowledged by the end of it, that's for sure. So what they hear is you're making them wrong. They feel manipulated. They feel like you're taking away from them. They feel like you're taking away from their needs. And they don't really have the bandwidth to take care of you anyway. I mean, they're barely taking care of themselves. At their core, they are children emotionally. They're not equipped to really take care of themselves emotionally. So they certainly can't take care of you emotionally too. They don't really want to have to take care of you emotionally. When you say, I need you to acknowledge that you hurt me, I need you to take care of my needs, that's like all kinds of triggering for them. And it's just not something that is possible for them, they want to do. And so that's where they are going to have to go on the offensive and attack you in some way. So, when narcissists hear what you're saying, I call it kind of like going through this prism. The words came out of your mouth, but by the time it lands on their ears, it's something totally different on the other side.
Now, if you're dealing with a narcissist, which I'm sure you probably are, or you wouldn't be watching this video, then you know what it's like, and almost nothing you think could possibly shock you about them because they're just heinous and awful to deal with. But there are some things that will absolutely shock you about narcissists. So hang on and let's get started. So the famous author Gore Vidal actually once was quoted as saying, "You can always spot the narcissist in the room. It's the person who's better looking than you." He was joking, of course, but the best jokes always have, that grain of truth in it. So the narcissist is the person that wants you to believe and wants to convince you that they're better than you in every way and that you are somehow less worthy than they are, have less value than they do, because that's what they really want you to believe. But the first thing I want you to know is the first shocking fact about narcissists, and that is how many of them that there are. So I'm going to go through some facts with you that I think are pretty shocking. One is that approximately 6% of the population has actually been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And so if there are 360 million people in this country and 6% of them have been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, that's 19,500,000 people. And if each one of those people just narcissistically abuses 5 people in their lifetimes, that's close to 100 million people. So just think about that. And if you apply that same formula to the population of the world, which is 7.5 billion, are you ready for this? 6% of 7.5 billion is 450 million people, okay, that have this narcissistic personality disorder. And if you actually overlay the number of people that lack a conscience or are actually sociopathic as well, then you are up to 697 million people who lack empathy or without a conscience or have narcissistic personality disorder. And if each one of those people just emotionally abuses 5 people in their lifetime, which is probably a low number, then you're actually talking about the potential damage of over 3.4 billion people. Yes, this is the secret global pandemic. And I just want to give a shout out to my friend Bree Bonche, who is the licensed clinical social worker and the designer host of Narcissistic Abuse Support Day, which takes place on June 1st of each year or somewhere around there. And I will actually drop a link below if you are interested in signing up for that free webinar that she hosts every year. I will be taking part in that this year. So that's from Bree Bonche. So that's fact number 1 that I think is absolutely shocking. The next thing that I find absolutely shocking about a narcissist is that it has nothing to do with genetics. It has, well, very little to do with genetics is what they think. It has everything to do with childhood. And the other shocking fact about their childhood is it doesn't necessarily come from trauma.
Yes, it can be from having a traumatic event or things happen in their childhood, but it can also be from having parents who were actually overindulgent with them and gave into them too much, or told them how amazing they were in every way. But here's the really key thing about that, is that they were praised constantly for the things that they did externally, and they weren't given any sense of feeling valuable on the internal. And that's the thing about narcissists, is they have no internal sense of value. And so if they were raised in an environment where everything was about the external, how did you look, what kind of grades did you get, then they might have been ended up being raised with this feeling of a lack of internal sense of value. And so that, I think, is actually pretty shocking as well. The other little thing about their childhood is that all children are sort of narcissists, as well as especially teens. And so, you know, it's part of the development of the human brain and the human emotions to, you know, start to develop a sense of yourself by being kind of narcissistic and feeling that the world revolves around you. And it's very common for 2-year-olds to think that, or even 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds. So the thing about narcissism is that while it starts in childhood like that, it actually can't be diagnosed until one becomes an adult. And number 3, the shocking thing about narcissism is that it's actually not necessarily an unhealthy thing. Just like a lot of other things with personality types, and narcissism is a personality type, it's actually a trait. Unlike some other mental disorders, the thing with narcissism is that we all kind of have an element of narcissism in us. We actually all want to feel seen, heard, and know that we matter. And we actually all want to be validated by people. And so there's a continuum of narcissism that's partially healthy. It's when it gets into the illusions of grandeur, and when you're actually feeling no sense of empathy for another human being, and you devalue, degrade, and discard other human beings to the point of emotional abuse that you're actually inflicting on these other human beings. That's when that level of narcissism has risen to a level of being unhealthy. It becomes unhealthy or pathological in the sense that they start to believe that their own pain, their feelings are actually more important than others. And they give no credence or credibility or validation to others for their feelings or for their contributions or their achievements. That's when it's pathological, and that's when it becomes unhealthy. So, and that's where you start to look at this scale of what a narcissist actually is. And I have a video on, am I married to a narcissist? And I actually go through the seven different personality traits that psychiatrists look at when they are actually trying to determine whether or not somebody is a narcissist or not. And I will drop a link to that video below. You're going to want to check that out. And if you are a victim of a narcissist and you are so ready for change in your life, give me an I'm ready in the comments right now. The 4th most shocking thing about narcissists is one of the things that I actually found the most shocking when I really started to learn about narcissists, because I had to deal with them so much in my law practice. And that is, they're actually the most scared, most insecure, most fragile personality on earth. You are actually so much stronger than they are. You're the stronger one. You're the more secure one. They know that, and that's why they were attracted to you in the first place, because remember, there's this symbiotic relationship between narcissists and empaths. And I talk more about that in my video on the covert passive aggressive narcissist. So you're going to want to check that out. And I will drop a link to that below as well. But just remember that you are probably an empath, because that's what narcissists are mostly attracted to. They want the person who has the qualities that they don't necessarily have. And they glom onto you and they just kind of drain the life out of you. But that's what's happening in these relationships. Underneath it all, there's this fragile little personality, an empty shell that feels no sense of value. So they attach themselves to people and people that they think are going to help them feel more valuable. And so they need an endless amount of supply. And they try to get that from that person. They're tremendously insecure. They're tremendously afraid of being rejected or abandoned. And so they act in this heinous way, all to protect their fragile little egos. I recently had a conversation with Dr. Ramani, and as many of my regular viewers know, that I did a lot of series with her. And one of the things that she said that really struck me is that she said that the narcissist is actually a very simple personality to understand. They're not like normal people like you and I, where we are actually pretty complicated, and there are a lot of different things that motivate us and a lot of different things that cause us to do the things that we do or want the things that we want. Narcissists are actually pretty simple. They're just wanting to try to get as much value from everything out in the world as they possibly can because they feel so empty inside. It's all about survival for them. So that's the shocking fact that I think is actually the most shocking. And that is that they are the most fragile, scared little creatures on the planet. And number 5, this is the best one, and this is where I come in, and that is that they can be motivated. They can be motivated to behave in certain ways. And that, in my world, I call that motivation leverage or strategy. And if you create enough leverage and you create a strong enough strategy and you're anticipating what the narcissist is going to do and focusing on you and your case, which is my SLAY strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you, then you will be able to get them to behave the way you want them to. They're basically 2-year-olds in adult bodies, and you're motivating the 2-year-old to stop having a tantrum. So when 2-year-olds have tantrums, they fall on the floor, they scream, they yell, and they're really just testing. They're testing the parents to see how much they need to scream and yell in order to get what they want. And narcissists do the same thing. They're testing you. They're testing your boundaries. They're testing you constantly. And so when the 2-year-old screams and yells and the parents give in and give the kid the lollipop, then the 2-year-old goes, aha, so all I need to do is scream and yell and fall on the floor and cause a big scene, and they will give in. So next time, I just need to scream louder, scream longer, and cause more of a scene, and they will eventually give in. So I'll just keep on doing this until they eventually give in. And that's what narcissists are doing. And so you have to kind of implement what we call a behavior modification system for narcissists and go, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to actually motivate you into behaving the way I want you to behave. Here's the little kind of thing about narcissists that I also think is sort of maybe shocking fact number 6, and that is that they do know what normal behavior looks like because they play the part. You know, they may not be able to feel any empathy for you, and they may not be able to give you emotionally what you want, and they may be act absolutely awful and emotionally abusive, but they do know what good behavior looks like. That's how they were able to love bomb you in the first place, in the first phase of the narcissistic relationship. Remember, the narcissistic relationship is love bomb, devalue, discard. And they do sort of vacillate back and forth between all of those different stages of the relationship. But just remember that they do know what they are supposed to do. So you can actually create enough leverage and enough motivation to squeeze them into behaving the way you want them to. And that to me is a positive, shocking fact about a narcissist.
If you're a renter, this is a no-brainer. You earn points on groceries and travel, so why not on rent? With Built, paying rent finally pays off. There's no cost to join, and just by paying rent, you unlock flexible points that can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, and your next Lyft ride, and more. When you pay rent through Built, you unlock two powerful benefits. First, you earn one of the industry's most valuable points on rent every month, no matter where you live or who your landlord is. Your rent now works for you. Second, you gain access to your exclusive neighborhood benefits in your city. These include extra points on dining out, complimentary post-workout shakes, and unique experiences only Built members can access. And when you're ready to travel, Built points can be converted to miles and hotel points. Your rent can literally take you places. Start paying rent through Built and take advantage of your neighborhood benefits by going to joinbuilt.com/negotiate. That's joinbilt.com/negotiate. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. That's joinbuilt.com/negotiate.
Let's talk about the slave program and how it helped you for sure.
Yeah. So in negotiation, it's really about give and take. And the more you know about the narcissist, the more you have to work with, because you know what they value. And first and foremost, they value their public appearance and the shiny things and being liked and adored by people. But then, you know, they're also very sloppy, and they think they can lie their way through any and everything, and they're entitled to more than a normal person. And so these are, you know, this is leverage. So, you know, you strategize, right? And then you have leverage, and then you anticipate, and then focus on yourself. And so the slave program is really, you know, I think one of the hardest things about this engagement with a narcissist is most people never go to court. You know, the majority of people never have to go to court for anything. The majority of people never even get like a, you know, traffic ticket. So those people that ever interact with the justice system are those people that get a speeding ticket, you know? And then, you know, way below that are people that have to deal with like any kind of litigation. So it's very intimidating, and just, but it's necessary. So the necessity of that, getting an overview of how that process works, is one of the first things that's really important of the slave program, because people who have been really put in a box don't know their power and don't know how to access the system and how to get change. So that is really helpful first and foremost. And then, you know, L, or leverage, is, you know, what are the things that are going to balance the scales in your favor? And the anticipation is, you know, what are the things that this person has said to me over and over again? What am I likely to expect? And so I'm definitely in that phase now, you know, 3 years on, of just like, oh, every time, well, I don't say every time, but it's like, I can predict that this is what I'm going to hear, because I've heard it many, 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 many times. And it actually is kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like a game, but it's definitely a reward mechanism where you say your piece, and then when you get the response that you expected, it's like, yes, this person has not changed. This person has not matured in any way, shape, or form. But just to be able to know who you're dealing with, that anticipation is really important. To not ever expect this person to be decent or kind or empathetic or generous or any of those things. It sucks. I mean, it's a really terrible, it's terrible, but you know, you harm yourself when you expect different. And so when you can anticipate that this person is going to act a certain way, regardless of how you show up. And that's why that 50 phrases to disarm a narcissist form was so vital, because it's like, you know, I already know what they're going to say and what needs to be responded, you know, what response I need to give them. So, and then you obviously is the person you're in control of, you know, I, it's like in a situation with a narcissistic, partner, ex-partner, I've had a number of narcissistic bosses. I had two really narcissistic bosses in a row. I've been independent, but like the two bosses that I worked with were super narcissistic. And it's like, you show up and you build yourself up and you never going to change this person. I'm not the best at managing up, but it's like, just know that this person's never going to change. Uh, and you can't change them. The next person's not going to change them either, but you can change you, and you can change you every day a little bit. And, there's another book that I love called Atomic Habits, and it doesn't exactly relate to narcissism, but it's just like when you think about each action as an investment in your future self, then you can break out of narcissistic patterns really, really quickly, because you're like, hey, I can control this, or I'm doing this, and this tiny little thing, drinking one more glass of water a day or doing 10 push-ups a couple times a day, transforms me into this version of myself. And the narcissist wants you to be a smaller and smaller version of yourself. But when you realize that just these little things that you can do from day to day make you the person that you most desire to be, it's a total game changer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm so glad that it was so helpful for you. I mean, it's exactly what I wanted, it's exactly what I envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was transformational for me as well, being able to kind of figure out, I mean, I had been helping people negotiate for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I didn't know anything about narcissists, even though I had been dealing with them in a negotiation setting for
Sure.
years. It wasn't until I had dealt with one as a business partner and then started reading hundreds of books on narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started applying what I was learning about narcissism to the cases that I mean, I was still practicing at the time. And I thought, it was like I had discovered penicillin,
Oh,
seriously.
totally. The
Um,
thing is, it's like, what's so insidious is that nobody believes it at first, but then, if the whole world was full of narcissists, society would completely crumble. Human civilization needs people to be honest and to be empathetic and to care about other people. And narcissists are so good at exploiting that, because on a day-to-day basis, you just have an expectation that unless someone is like carrying a knife or doing something out and out dangerous, that you can probably expect them to be thinking about you as much as you're thinking about them. And if everybody in society was looking to stab you in the back the minute your guard was down, we would have no society, or we'd have no, there would be no, it would just be complete chaos. But the fact is that a narcissist is an opportunist who is always looking to pick your pocket, always looking to get over on you, get over on everybody, and thinks they can. And they're actually very accomplished at it because they've been doing it their whole life. And so
yeah,
that's why they hide in plain sight. But,
yeah,
like you said, they're predators. It's like,
yeah,
that's how I explain it to you, is like they have this really predatory and parasitic behavior where they just see everyone as a mark. And
correct.
so you don't really realize how you're being roped in to a narcissist's game, because you just assume that, of the thousands of people you've met in your life, you've only met or acknowledged a few narcissists. But the fact that they're so, they're like goblins, right? They're really just like,
Right. And
you
and
know,
one of the things that you just mentioned that I wanted to actually come back to, um, that I've kind of had an aha moment about
mhm,
since I've been doing this work, is that um, there's something around 85% of cases in family law settle out of
mhm,
court. And so, conversely, that means that, 10 to 15% of cases go to trial,
mhm,
right? I have had this aha moment that
roughly 10 to 15% of the population is what they estimate to be narcissistic. And I have come to realize that I don't think that those numbers are an accident, because I believe that that there's a correlation there.
Totally. Yeah.
I believe that the cases that aren't settling are the ones that have a narcissist involved.
Sure. Because who else wants to keep coming back and keep coming back?
Correct.
And yeah, I mean, so this is like a Tina Swithin thing. It's like, you can't just call someone a narcissist in court because there is no place for that. But
no. So what I tell people all the time, because I do know for sure that I'm the most prominent, at least the most, the lawyer that's the one that has the most visibility right now, out there, the one that, is that you can't just say the person's a narcissist, because judges don't care about that, in the sense that you can't tie that to law. And what the judges care about is the law,
right?
Because that's what they're tasked to do. Okay, so you have to put it in terms that the judge can tie it to. And what the judges are tasked to do is make a decision based in the law. So you have to find a way to tie it back to the statute. And so what people say, oh, they don't care. It's not that their job to make a decision based on empathy. Oh, yes, honey, they're a narcissist. Well, it's not a conversation that they're supposed to be having.
Right.
They're supposed to make a decision based in the law.
Right.
That's their job.
And someone else would have to make the same decision based on the same evidence. It's not that they're a human standing in for the law. They're not. It's not like you said. It's not a conversation.
The law. That's their job. So the law is the law, and it's written down.
Right.
And so
when you read the transcripts, it says the court. It's
court.
Not they're talking about themselves in the abstract.
Correct.
No.
So you can't look at the judge as,
and expect them to get it. It's like you have to show a pattern of this behavior.
You have to put it in terms, because the judge has a job to do, and the judge needs to keep that job, and the judge is going to be critiqued on that job, and the judge could be appealed, or if they don't make a decision based in that law.
Yeah.
So you have to put it in terms that the judge is going to care about, and how that happens is you go, okay, California law has 10 factors or 18 factors, or whatever it is.
I think it's 13.
But whatever it is, I don't know. I know Florida has 17 factors, but so you just you go, okay, what's the first factor? Which parent is more likely to foster a close and continuing relationship with the other parent, or whatever the factor says. And if that factor doesn't, if you can figure out a way to shove narcissism under that factor, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And that's how you get the judge to care.
And without going down a rabbit hole, the last hearing.
That's what I teach in the slave program, by the way.
And without going down a rabbit hole, what's fascinating about it is that the case right before ours was a high net worth couple divorce. And the attorney for the respondent told the judge, oh, well, this is too complicated for you to understand. And it was kind of this like, needle skipping over the record. The judge was like, no, this is absolutely not too complicated. And I treat all people under the law the same, because, it was just like a millionaire divorce. But he was like, no, I get exactly what's going on here. I take umbrage to that statement. but then, we were next in our situations. It's like, here's a judge who, from one breath to the next is dealing with like division of millions of dollars of assets and multiple properties. And then it's like, the custody situations, like narcissism really doesn't mean anything to the judge when the judge has to deal with like these like property divisions and custody time and things like that. So it's just like, again, it's really like, what is the evidence the judge is gonna make a decision based upon?
Right. Right. And so that's how you get the judge to care.
Yeah, that's how you get the judge to care. And it's like, it's this whole unwinding process, because going from feeling so like this person was mistreating me so terribly and starting fights at 3 o'clock in the morning and, all of this, to how to present this to a judge so that a judge can make a ruling, and successfully presenting, to the judge was a very, again, I credit the slave program tremendously, because it's like the thing that a narcissist wants more than anything is to get you to argue with them, to get you to defend yourself, to see the world through their very skewed prism. And, that can really cost you when you are in front of a judge, especially if you have written communication, because that communication can then be presented as an exhibit. And so, there's other people like Bill Eddy, who wrote Biff and, Splitting, and some of these other ones, who he's a psychologist and a lawyer. And, it's just like Biff stands for brief, informative, friendly, and factual.
And firm.
And it just like,
Yeah. And firm.
firm. Yes. Brief, informative, friendly, and firm, and or factual and firm. But just the idea, friendly and firm. Okay. So just get to the point, say nothing more than you need to say, and becomes a muscle, so it's like, there's these narcissistic muscles that you have to train. And, the unfortunate thing is you get to train them every single day or almost every single day, especially if you are co-parenting, and again, like in my situation, it's just like, oh, why is this so hard? It's so hard every day. This sucks so much. Why can't this person just be decent? Like I'm so over fighting, and just want to go on with my life. And it's like, no, don't go on with your life. I want you to be, beholden to me or thinking about me in some way, shape, or form every day. And it's like, a healthy person doesn't think that way. A healthy person wants to get on with their life and live their life fully. And it's just like, so that's the hard thing to come to grips with, and nobody's going to understand it unless they've been in the situation. But if you have been in the situation, you're just like, yes, and I know you have got a Facebook community that's like totally, rocking, because there's so many people that want to be in
almost
fellowship.
100,000 people now.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
People who just get it, and when people share their text message conversations and things like that, just like, wow, been there, done that. So, but then it's like this virus of narcissism out there in the world. It seems to be really infecting almost as many people as COVID. So that's the, it's like, that's the next frontier, is how to inoculate society against narcissism, when social media and, YouTube and politics and, just there's so many outlets for narcissism to really flourish. And so, and it just causes so much damage to so many people. So, and no surprise that you have 100,000 people in your community, and, such a prolific YouTube channel, and, the courses, and now doing these big arena talks.